Scottish salmon industry chiefs have said it is impossible to judge the impact of Brexit on the lucrative sector because official government export figures are wildly inaccurate. The Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation (SSPO) said the Treasury figures for January underestimated foreign sales by much as 97%, meaning the extent of the problems for Scottish fishing exports post-Brexit may not be as serious as first thought. New post-Brexit rules came into force on January 1 with red tape causing delays for some in the seafood sector who usually export to Europe. Hamish MacDonald, Director of Strategic Engagement at the SSPO, told the Commons Scottish Affairs Committee the HMRC figures were not just wrong, they were very, very wrong. He said, "It is really difficult for you as a committee, or anybody else, to really assess the impact of Brexit when we don't have a proper baseline on the stats. We sent about 5,000 tons of salmon to Europe in January. The Eurostat system, which records how much Scottish salmon went into the EU, records about 4,700 tons going in. The HMRC figures say we only sent 80 tons, which is only 3% of the amount that actually went there." Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross, who is also a member of the committee, said the SSPO's claim was incredible. He said, "That's just an incredible statement that we've had from you, so you're effectively saying that somehow HMRC has lost 97% of the salmon that was exported to the European Union? I am not saying there's salmon lying somewhere, but it's not just a couple of percent. It's the vast majority. I think it's a massive borach, the whole thing is a mess." Scroll down for Brexit live updates. 6:40 a.m. update. Ponies held in Belfast freed after a month after Brexit row. 4 ponies held at Belfast port for a month owing to Brexit paperwork concerns are to be freed after a court ruling. In the first case of its kind since the UK left the EU, a judge on Thursday ordered the release of 4 Dartmoor ponies that had been detained since the 21st of March after arriving in Belfast on a ferry from Liverpool. According to Northern Ireland's Department of Agriculture, Environmental and Rural Affairs, there were serious omissions about the ponies' place of origin, required for welfare and tracing purposes. Judge George Connor concluded there was no virtue in sending the animals back to Scotland or any other place on the mainland just to teach someone a lesson in form filling. He urged Brussels to review the case and the rule that the animals should have been returned to Britain for a further quarantine, rather than remain in Northern Ireland. 5:15 a.m. update. EU refuses to buy 100 meters AstraZeneca COVID vaccines in fury over delay. The European Union has turned down the offer of 100 million AstraZeneca COVID vaccination doses after becoming frustrated by delays to their delivery. The European Commission is also expected to turn down another 200 million from Johnson & Johnson after opting to distance itself from the 2 jabs in recent weeks. Brussels is furious that Anglo-Swedish drugs giant AstraZeneca has not delivered enough doses of its Oxford-produced shot to member states, and has now decided that it will only opt to buy up COVID-19 vaccines that use the mRNA technology, such as Pfizer and Modern. 4:30 a.m. update. WHO calls on blood clot data from outside Europe. The World Health Organization's WHO vaccine advisors called Thursday for more data on the incidence of blood clots in people who received the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine outside Europe. Their Strategic Advisory Group of Experts (SAGE) on immunization said most clotting cases were reported in Britain and the European Union, with very few cases noted in other countries. The UN agency stressed in a statement, WHO continues to support the conclusion that the benefits of these vaccines outweigh the risks. 2:45 a.m. update. Here we go. Truss hails Great Australia trade talks £18 billion post-Brexit deal within reach. Liz Truss has concluded a day of talks with her Australian counterpart, as the two countries look to finalise a free trade agreement. Dan Tehan flew to London this week to hold face-to-face talks with Ms. Truss. Negotiations between the two sides are understood to have stalled in recent months, with both sides looking to restore momentum to get the deal over the line. Following the conclusion of the talks, Ms. Truss said on social media, "Great morning of talks with Dan Tehan on our UK-Australia trade deal. We want an agreement that will support jobs across the United Kingdom and strengthen ties between two democracies who believe passionately in free and fair trade." 1:15 a.m. update, take that, Brussels. Brexit row over EU shellfish export ban set to end as waters upgraded. Hope is on the horizon for UK shellfish fishermen who will be able to export their goods to the EU following a ban. The ban announced by the European Commission prevents scallops, clams, cockles, oysters and mussels known as bivalve mollusks from being exported to the bloc unless they are ready for human consumption after being purified. In a review, the Independent Food Standards Agency said it would upgrade 11 out of 266 sea areas to Class A waters. These waters include parts of Dorset, Northumberland, the Thames Estuary and St Austell Bay in Cornwall. UK shellfish producers were able to export unpurified unshell products such as mussels to the EU until the end of the transition period. They would then be purified after arriving at their destination. However, since January 1 at the end of the Brexit transition period, firms have only been able to send pre-purified shellfish to the continent. 12:10 a.m. update, enough, Macron. Jersey to pass law banning illegal French boats from fishing in waters. Jersey politicians have issued an ultimatum to French fishermen as they bring forward new laws to prevent illegal fishing. John Young, the British Crown Dependency's Environment Minister, claimed the ban would prevent French vessels that have fished illegally in the Channel from landing their catch on the island. Alongside this, the new legislation which will be debated in June in the Jersey Parliament would also help to stop illegal fishing under new illegal, unreported and unregulated IUU measures. In the proposition for the legislation, submitted by Mr. Young, ministers argue the Brexit arrangements with Brussels were likely to have an impact on trade in fish and fish products. This, the proposition argued, was specifically on Jersey vessels' ability to land catch into the EU and French vessels' ability to land into Jersey. 11:12 p.m. update, Brexit fishing fury, Boris accused of export stitch-up, Scottish salmon fishermen hit out. Boris Johnson has come under fire in another Brexit fishing row after an industry body raised figures from HMRC for Scottish salmon exports to the European Union in January are very, very wrong. The Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation (SSPO) is furious and has claimed figures from the Treasury underestimated exports to the European Union by much as 97%, meaning it is impossible to judge the impact of Brexit. The industry body, which represents all of Scotland's salmon producers, told Westminster's Scottish Affairs Committee it believes more salmon had been exported in January compared to a year earlier. SSPO Director of Strategic Engagement Hamish MacDonald told MPs on the committee the numbers from HMRC were not just wrong, they were very, very wrong. Dylan Donnelly takes over from Simon Osborne. 10:24 p.m. update, Jersey to pass law banning illegal French boats from fishing in waters. Jersey has issued an ultimatum to French fishermen as they bring forward new laws to prevent illegal fishing. John Young, the British Crown Dependency's Environment Minister, claimed the ban would prevent French vessels that have fished illegally in the Channel from landing their catch on the island. Alongside this, the new legislation which will be debated in June in the Jersey Parliament would also help to stop illegal fishing under new illegal, unreported and unregulated IUU measures. It comes after island fishermen raged at French counterparts claiming local waters were being plundered as a new post-Brexit fishing relationship sparked tension in the region. The Jersey Fishing Association also claimed Jersey ministers were trying to start a war with French counterparts over post-Brexit fishing rights. In the proposition for the legislation, submitted by Mr. Young, ministers argue the Brexit arrangements with Brussels were likely to have an impact on trade in fish and fish products. 9:45 p.m. update, French fishermen vow to sink UK industry in fury at Brexit. French fishermen have vowed to make Britain pay for cutting their access to our coastal waters after Brexit. The threat came after union bosses launched a blockade of UK exports to the continent amid growing anger over being shut out of our coastal waters. Organizers said more than 100 boats will take part in the action that is planned to continue into tomorrow. French trawlermen are reeling from losing their generous access to UK fishing grounds after Brexit, which they say has sparked an economic disaster. Campaign groups from Hauts-de-France accused Boris Johnson's government of being highly contemptuous since they respect neither agreements nor commitments of the UK-EU Fisheries Pact. They claim just 22 out of 120 vessels operating from Boulogne-sur-Mer have been granted access to British waters, leaving 80% of their fleet out of operation. 7:28 p.m. Update. Truss hails Great Australia trade talks £18 billion post-Brexit deal within reach. Liz Truss has concluded a day of talks with her Australian counterpart, as the two countries look to finalise a free trade agreement. Dan Tehan flew to London this week to hold face-to-face talks with Ms. Truss. Negotiations between the two sides are understood to have stalled in recent months, with both sides looking to restore momentum to get the deal over the line. In total £18.8 billion of trade is done between the UK and Australia each year. Following the conclusion of the talks, Ms. Truss said on social media, "Great morning of talks with Dan Tehan on our UK-Australia trade deal. We want an agreement that will support jobs across the United Kingdom and strengthen ties between two democracies who believe passionately in free and fair trade." Ms. Truss said the UK wanted to negotiate a gold standard deal that slashes tariffs for businesses, pushes new frontiers in digital and services, and supports jobs across Britain. 6:54 p.m. Update. Brexit disruption to medicine supply unacceptable. Northern Ireland's health minister has voiced concern about the supply line of medicines to the region as a result of a looming Brexit regulatory barrier. Under the terms of Brexit's contentious Northern Ireland Protocol, the region is to operate under different regulatory rules for medicines and medical devices than the rest of the UK. Northern Ireland currently secures 98% of its supplies from Great Britain. A one-year grace period delaying the implementation of this aspect of the protocol is due to expire at the end of the year. Health Minister Robin Swan told the Stormont Scrutiny Committee that the EU's ill-fated attempt to suspend a part of the protocol in January, amid a dispute with vaccine manufacturers over exporting jabs out of the bloc, had impacted efforts to prepare for the end of the grace period. The UK is pressing the EU to agree to a further year extension of the grace period on medicines and medical supplies. Mr. Swan said longer-term solutions to the medical supply issue lay with ongoing negotiations between the UK and EU on resolutions to some of the problems created by the protocol. He said, "It would be unacceptable that our medicines or medical devices are impacted and the supply of them. We are a small part of the overall UK market in regards to many of these big pharma companies, and I see no reason why we should be treated differently." 4:12 p.m. Update. Antrim mayor badly let down by police response to Brexit threats. The mayor of Mid and East Antrim said he feels badly let down by police in events around the withdrawal of staff from post-Brexit checks at Larne Port. Peter Johnston said Council Chief Executive Anne Donaghy almost had to chase to the Chief Constable's office with a begging bowl for a threat assessment. He said, "On one hand we are given this impression there is no threat, everything is fine, but on the other hand we had almost 3,000 additional police hours put down to Larne Port, we even had armed response units down at the port." Some residents said they hadn't seen as much police presence since the days of the Troubles, he told a Stormont committee. "We as an organization had to act quickly, had to take the decision fast, and I think there are still questions to be answered as to why it took so long for the threat assessment to come back. Throughout this whole episode we have been badly let down by the PSNI, and I don't say those words lightly." 3:08 p.m. Update. Brexit row erupts over very wrong export figures. Scottish salmon industry chiefs have said it is impossible to judge the impact of Brexit on the sector because officials' government export figures are very wrong. The Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation (SSPO) said the Treasury figures for January underestimated exports by much as 97%. New post-Brexit rules came into force on January 1 with red tape causing delays for some in the seafood sector who usually export to Europe. Hamish MacDonald, Director of Strategic Engagement at the SSPO, told the Commons Scottish Affairs Committee the HMRC figures were not just wrong, they were very, very wrong. He said, "It is really difficult for you as a committee, or anybody else, to really assess the impact of Brexit when we don't have a proper baseline on the stats. We sent about 5,000 tons of salmon to Europe in January. The Eurostat system, which records how much Scottish salmon went into the EU, records about 4,700 tons going in. The HMRC figures say we only sent 80 tons, which is only 3% of the amount that actually went there." 2:06 p.m. update, Swiss president takes bitter swipe at Boris Johnson before Crunch EU meeting. In an interview at the weekend, Mr. Parmelin appears to criticize Mr. Johnson's approach when it came to dealings with Brussels, saying, "I am not going to play Boris Johnson." Speaking to Swiss newspaper Le Matin Dimanche, he also dismissed any comparisons with Brexit, insisting Switzerland does not want to leave an agreement, but find a solution for developing it further. Many Swiss business leaders who are keen on continued smooth access to the EU market want the treaty. However, political resistance to the agreement means Mr. Parmelin, a member of the Eurosceptic Swiss People's Party, the biggest in the Swiss parliament, has little leeway to clinch a deal after years of foot-dragging in Bern. That could leave him fighting a rearguard action when he meets Mrs. von der Leyen, who is pressuring Bern finally to embrace the draft accord which was negotiated in 3 years ago. 1:08 p.m. update, Brexit. Britain's climate ambitions have sparked a new space race with EU. Boris Johnson this week set out the most ambitious plans to tackle climate change in the world. The Prime Minister vowed to cut carbon emissions by more than 3/4 by 2035, insisting that the UK will lead the way in green technologies. This has prompted a modern-day space race between Downing Street and Brussels, a contest that both parties view as a success story. "It's a man-on-the-moon moment," one insider told Express.co.uk, while Britain set out plans to cut emissions by 78% by 2035 compared to 1990 levels, EU nations have agreed to slash their rates by at least 55% in a similar timescale. No tense climate announcement was seen as a helpful gesture by Eurocrats to help get a largely divided EU on board with their climate ambitions. Mr. Johnson has always viewed the UK's presidency of the COP26 climate summit as the ideal way to market post-Brexit Britain as a force for good across the world. 12:17 a.m. update, EU braced for pandemonium over dangerous German campaign for Brussels breakaway. A survey by the Allensbach Institute has revealed that just 15% of the German public now have a favorable opinion of the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. The EU chief has been under extreme scrutiny in the past couple of months, as many accused her of hampering the continent's vaccination campaigns with a botched, centralized procurement strategy. Approximately 8% say that Germany has benefited from the EU's vaccine purchases, while 46% said no. But what is really striking is creeping Euroscepticism. Roughly 39% want repatriation of competences from the EU to member states, while only 12% want more competences for the EU. The poll showed 63% think the EU is excessively bureaucratic, and 58% believe that Germany has to pay for over-indebted Eurozone countries. In a recent report, head of Oxford-based think tank Euro Intelligence Wolfgang Munchau insisted these figures should not be underestimated. In particular, the political commentator argued the Brexit campaign by Alternative for Germany (AfD), a nationalist and right-wing populist political party, is now more dangerous than it appears. He explained, the AfD's internal division might overshadow everything, but the party has the potential to attract protest votes from disgruntled Christian Democratic Union (CDU) voters, especially in the East. and it is the only party willing to fish in the pool of anti-EU sentiment. The Allensbach numbers don't suggest that Germans are in their majority in favor of leaving the EU. But they do tell us that Euroscepticism is large and persistent. 11:30 a.m. update. UK urges EU to agree extension of grace period on supplies. The UK is pressing the EU to agree to a further year extension of the grace period on medicines and medical supplies. Under the terms of the Brexit withdrawal agreement, Northern Ireland and Great Britain are to operate under different regulatory rules for medicines and medical devices. A one-year grace period delaying the practical consequences of this is due to expire at the end of the year. Northern Ireland currently secures 98% of its supplies from Great Britain. Northern Ireland's Health Minister Robin Swan told the Stormont Health Committee he would welcome any further extension. He said, when grace periods were initially indicated, the one for medicines and medical devices was the longest because they indicated and they knew the difficulties that were going to be addressed. Any extension to a grace period would be welcome because it would allow us to put firmer foundations into the supplies that's needed, and that also takes into considerations what political movements or decisions or discussions or agreements can be made between the UK government and the EU, specifically in regards to the supply of medicines to Northern Ireland. 10:52 a.m. update. Boris Brexit bluff. PM accused of privately bowing down to EU on trade to knee. This week the Prime Minister said he was trying to eliminate ludicrous border checks introduced between Britain and Northern Ireland. The customs checks were introduced as part of Mr. Johnson's Brexit withdrawal agreement signed with the EU in 2019. The deal has led to bureaucratic paperwork and red tape, disrupting trade within the UK across the Irish Sea and sparking outrage in Northern Ireland. In an interview with the BBC this week, Mr. Johnson vowed action on the protocol and threatened to trigger Article 16. The measure allows him to take unilateral action to remove the customs checks if serious economic, societal or environmental difficulties that are liable to persist, or to diversion of trade. What we are doing is what I think is removing the unnecessary protuberances and barriers that have grown up, and we are getting the barnacles off the thing and sandpapering into shape, the Prime Minister told a BBC Spotlight program. 9:54 a.m. update. Rejoiners plot to tie UK to EU scheme handing back control to Brussels. A recent European Movement UK report argues Brexit has had a negative impact on Britain and calls for closer relations between London and Brussels. This includes reapplying to be part of the EEA, which Britain left with other EU institutions, as a third country. The document stated, the UK should rejoin the European Environmental Agency as a third country for access to data and expertise in the fight against climate change. The EU created the EEA, currently headquartered in Copenhagen, in 1990, in a bid to improve environmental quality around Europe. 9:06 a.m. update. Britain throwing kitchen sink at making Northern Ireland Brexit deal work. Tensions have erupted between the UK and EU ever since the post-Brexit trade deal came into force in January. But trade groups have said UK government officials are now stepping up their efforts to bring in the NE Protocol, which is the part of the 2019 Brexit divorce deal that requires all goods entering Northern Ireland from the UK to comply with EU customs rules. Stephen Kelly, chief executive of Manufacturing Northern Ireland, told the FT, Whitehall is throwing the kitchen sink at this thing. I cannot remember ever seeing this level of engagement from right across the UK government. Officials are working their rear ends off to try and make it work. 8:37 a.m. update. It's your fault, Leo. Former diplomat humiliates Varadkar over Ireland's Brexit blunder. Ray Bassett said Ireland was now paying the price for siding with the bloc, suggesting reality had finally begun to bite. The former ambassador to Canada, Jamaica and the Bahamas was speaking during a week when Brussels ordered Irish fishing crews to weigh all catches in port in a reversal of a previous policy, citing incidents of underreporting. Eurosceptic Mr. Bassett, who outlined his various concerns in his book Ireland and the EU post-Brexit, said the episode was the latest example of the way in which the bloc was running roughshod over Dublin. Arch-Europhile and Fine Gael leader Mr Varadkar, who was replaced as Ireland's leader by Fianna Fáil leader Michael Martin last year, was widely perceived to have stayed closely aligned with then European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker throughout the tortuous Brexit saga which followed the 2016 referendum. Mr Bassett told Express.co.uk, Leo gambled that Brexit would be reversed and in concert with the Remainers in London and Brussels, he did everything he could to thwart the UK's exit. The Irish establishment was 100% convinced that Juncker and his friends would prevail. This was bolstered by the Irish media who acted as an echo chamber for Leo throughout the negotiations. Also Leo believed that the anti-Brexit press in the UK was providing accurate readings of public sentiment in the UK. Leo felt that the British establishment would be grateful for his efforts after Brexit had been defeated. 8:04 a.m. Update, Brexit fishing row explodes, Boris orders Macron to intervene in French fishermen's revolt. British officials have held talks with their French counterparts ahead of a protest by a group of trawlermen who are planning the outrageous revolt in ports near Calais. They have accused Downing Street of blocking their access to UK fishing grounds after the post-Brexit agreement with the EU entered into force. The row is over an alleged refusal to issue special licenses to French boats working out of Boulogne-sur-Mer. A government spokeswoman said, the UK maintains a consistent, evidence-based approach to licensing EU vessels using information supplied by the European Commission. We do not recognize the figures that have been shared by the French fishing industry and consider this reaction to be unjustified. Our concerns regarding the planned protest action have been raised directly with the French authorities. Union bosses representing fishermen that work out of the French port claim 80% of their vessels having been granted permission to fish in UK waters. 7:59 a.m. Update, Brexit bonanza looms as £100 billion India trade deal holds key to unlock new global alliance. A deal with India, which some experts have suggested could be worth up to £100 billion, could bring enormous material and geopolitical benefits for the UK, an economist has suggested. But Shankar Singham, academic fellow at the Institute for Economic Affairs (IEA), said in order for such an agreement to work in practice, it would be imperative for India to align with what he called the core values of countries such as Britain, including a belief in competition and open trade. The prospects of a deal being struck in the short term were dealt a blow this week after Boris Johnson was forced to cancel his planned trip to India, when he was due to meet the country's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Yesterday, Gaurav Singh, co-founder of venture capitalist firm JPINVCATS, insisted a deal, which he believes could be worth between £50 billion and £100 billion, was still feasible, with International Trade Secretary Liz Truss understood to be working hard behind the scenes to make it happen. In speaking on the day his new paper on the subject, Eastern Promise, Assessing the Future of UK-India Trade, was published by the IEA, Mr. Singham agreed, with certain caveats. He explained, there are real opportunities for both the UK and India of a free trade agreement, and these are not limited to commercial benefits only. There is a crucial geopolitical dimension of aligning a group of countries including the UK, US, India and the CPTPP nations, especially Australia, New Zealand and Japan, who believe in competitive markets, property rights protection, and open trade. But India will have to choose to align itself to these core values. It is at that vital crossroads now. Quote,